He had met Jalal today. Had he spoken to Jalal like this a year and a half back, the effect may have been different. Then, his feelings for Imama may have been different, and, maybe, he would not have shown such indifference towards her as he had done today. Salar's mind alternated between relief and remorse. The second year of MBA passed off very peacefully. Apart from studies, he did little else. He would only talk about sports or discuss other topics with his class fellows, or else spend time with them on group projects. He would spend the rest of the time in the library. His only activity at the weekend was to go to the Islamic center, where he would learn to recite the Holy Quran from an Arab and repeat his lessons. Eventually, he started to learn the Arabic language from him. Khalid Abdul Rahman, the Arab, was basically a medical technician and was attached to a hospital. At the weekends, he took classes of Arabic language and the Holy Quran at the Islamic Center. He took no remuneration for his services, and in fact he and his relatives had donated a large number of books to the library of the Islamic Center. One day, during one of these Quran classes, he asked Salar, "Why don't you memorize the Quran?" At this unexpected suggestion, Salar stared at him in amazement. How can I do it?" Why can't you do it?" Khalid counter-questioned him. "It is very difficult, and for a person like me, no, I can't do it," Salar said after a few moments. "You've got a good brain. In fact, I would say that in my whole life, I have not come across a more intelligent person than you. In the short time, the speed with which you have learned short and long surahs, nobody else has been able to do it. And I am also amazed at the speed at which you are learning Arabic. When the mind is so fertile, and when there is a yearning to learn and retain things, then why not the Holy Quran? Allah also has a right over your capabilities," Khalid said. "You have not understood me. I have no objection against learning it, but it is very difficult. I cannot do it at this age," Salar explained. "But I think memorizing the Quran will be easy for you. You start it, and, though I won't vouch for anyone else, but for you I can say with guarantee that you'll not only do it easily, but in a very short time." Salar did not speak further on the subject that day, but that night, after going back to his apartment, he thought only of his conversation with Khalid Abdul Rahman. He had thought that Khalid would not again broach the subject, but he again posed the same question the following week. Salar looked at him quietly for a long time, and then in a low voice said to Khalid, "I feel frightened." "Of what? Of memorizing the Quran?" Khalid asked with some amazement. Salar nodded affirmatively. "Why?" He was silent for a long time. Then he ran his finger over the carpet and, looking at the lines that he had drawn, said to Khalid, "I have sinned a lot, so many sins that it is difficult for me to count them. Small sins, big sins, every sin that one can imagine. I cannot even think of saving this book in my breast or my mind. My breast and mind are not pure. People like me are not worthy of memorizing it. I cannot even think of it," he uttered, overcome with emotion. Khalid was silent for a while. Then he asked, "Do you still sin?" Salar shook his head in denial. "Then, what is there to be afraid of? If you can recite the Quran in spite of all your sins, you can memorize it also. And you have stopped sinning. This is sufficient. If Allah does not want you to memorize it, you will not be able to, no matter how hard you tried. But if you are fortunate, you will." Khalid seemed to have fixed the problem in a trice. Salar kept awake that night. After half the night was over, he opened the first chapter, trembling, and began to memorize it. As he did so, he realized that Khalid Abdul Rahman's words were true. He already knew a lot of the Quran by heart. The fear that he felt in the beginning when he started did not remain with him for long. His heart found strength and support from an unknown source. From where? His tongue rolled out the words with lucidity. Who was helping him? Who had stopped the trembling of his hands? Why? Some time before the morning prayers, he broke into tears, an outpouring, when for the first time he was able to completely recite what he had memorized in the last 5 hours. He had faltered nowhere, nor had he forgotten anything, nor had he committed any errors of diction. Reciting the last few lines, though, his tongue faltered, his sobs made it difficult for him to recite fluently. If Allah wills and you are fortunate, you will memorize the Holy Quran. Otherwise, no matter how hard you may try, you will not be able to. He was recalling Khalid Abdur Rahman's words. After saying the morning prayers, he had recorded on a cassette the first memorization of his life. Once again, he had felt no difficulty. In fact, there was greater fluency of recital, and his tone was eloquent. This was a novelty in his life. He had been blessed again, but his depression had not gone. At night, he could not imagine going to sleep without sleeping pills, and in spite of the sedative, he could not put off the lights in his room. He was afraid of the dark. Then, it was Khalid who had said it to him one day. He was reciting the lesson from the Quran which he had memorized, and Khalid intently kept watching his face. When he had finished, he picked up the glass of water and put it to his lips. He heard Khalid say, "Last night, in my dream, I saw you performing Hajj." Salar couldn't swallow the water in his mouth. Putting the glass down, he stared at Khalid. "This year your MBA will be over. You can perform the Hajj next year." Khalid's tone was very formal. Salar absent-mindedly swallowed the water in his mouth. He could not question his proposal that day. In fact, he had no question. He had memorized the Holy Quran 2 weeks before the start of the final semester of his MBA. 4 weeks after the final semester, at the age of 23.5 years, he had performed the first Hajj of his life. Whilst going there or coming back, he had no notions of superiority, pride, envy, or anything else in his heart or mind. The people with him in the Pakistani camp were perhaps those who were fortunate. They were called to the pilgrimage because of their good deeds. But he was aware of his misdeeds and had been called to explain his actions. If he had not been memorizing the Quran, it wouldn't have even occurred to him to perform Hajj. The person who did not have the courage to face Allah when distant from Haram Sharif and was ready to go off anywhere else could hardly be expected to face the Almighty at the Kaaba. But at Khalid Abdul Rahman's suggestion just once, he had docilely acquiesced and had submitted his papers for going for Hajj. Others got the chance to go for Hajj when they not only had no surfeit of sins, but also had loads of good deeds. But Salar Sikandar got to go when he had nothing but his sins to present. Very well, if I have sinned without any fear, then I should not be afraid of standing before my Maker and begging forgiveness for my sins. Except that I will not be able to lift up my head, to raise my eyes, the only word on my lips will be the plea for forgiveness. I accept this punishment, for I deserve worse humiliation and scorn. Each year, there must be one such person who brings no offering except his misdeeds. If this year I, Salar Sikandar, am to be that person, then so be it. The meaning of the term burden of one's sins, and how a person on the day of judgment would want to cast it off his back and flee from it or shove it onto someone else's back, became clear to Salar when he reached the Haram Sharif. Standing there, had he tried to trade in his sins for all the wealth he had in his present and future life, he would have found no buyer. If only one could trade in one's vices for money and buy someone else's virtues. In that horde of thousands, all clad in 2 simple white sheets, who knew who Salar Sikandar was, or cared how brilliant his mind was, or what he had studied and from where? The academic records he had set and broken, and the challenges he would overcome with his intelligence in various fields made no difference here. Should he trip and fall and be trampled in a stampede, no one there would pause to think what an intellectual loss it would be. He became acutely aware of his insignificance, and if even a shred of doubt had remained, it was dispelled. Every remaining bit of pride, ego, self-importance and envy had been shot out of his system. He had gone there to have these pollutants removed. The excellent result of his MBA surprised nobody, as his department was well aware of his capabilities. His projects and his assignments were so much better than his class fellows that his professors had no reservations accepting his astounding success. He was way ahead of his peers, and in the second year of his MBA, he had forged even further ahead.